One. And we're live. Hello, everyone. I just want to welcome you today, and I want to share something really special that's going on in Boston right now. Check this out. Ta-da! This is the view right outside my window, and I've got special holiday overlay on here. That the first real blizzard we're having here in Boston, I would share that with all of you in case you're missing, in case there's anybody out there missing the snowfall and missing the idea of having a white holiday, a white seasonal Christmas type of thing. Here it is right out the window. And today, why we're here is I've got a special guest coming on who is a speaker coach, and his name is Kit Pang. And the reason that I brought him on is because we are all moving, from doom and gloom, it's become doom and zoom. And with the shutdown, all of us are communicating virtually. All of us are needing to share our message virtually. And whether you were a speaker or you were a presenter, or if you just needed to go and show up at meetings and present your ideas at those meetings, we're now all having to do it in this virtual environment. And the question is, first of all, if everybody's doing it, how do we communicate ourselves effectively when we're talking through a camera? And more importantly, if everybody's doing it and all this noise is being created, how do we capture attention? So the topic of today is how to captivate your virtual audience, how to captivate the people who are tuning in with you and who are communicating with you in this virtual environment. And so welcome to the show, Kit. It's so great to have you here.
Hey, everyone. I just want to say hi to everyone. And Brad, thank you for having me on.
Yes, you're welcome. Well, I'm really delighted that you're here because Kit and I have actually worked together a number of occasions. Kit produces a local thing called BostonSpeaks, and actually has been the moderator and host of a local monthly event called the BostonSpeaks series. And the way we've collaborated is in bringing that virtual or the in-person event to the virtual world and actually live streaming it. And this has been, become a significant event here in Boston over the last 3-4 years, however long it's been. And Kit is like the center of this. And in addition to that, he speaks at events all around the country. He's been a TEDx speaker more than once and has done a whole bunch of really cool stuff in terms of being a speaker coach and helping other people get their message out speaking. And the question that I have is, as we just sort of start our discussion, is, Kit, you have had to go through your own transition of somebody doing everything in person, and now you're having to do pretty much all of it like this. So let's tell a bit of your story of how that transition has been.
And so, Brad, the question was the transition from going live in person to virtual. I'm going to say we actually see this more happening to the rest of us, not just in person and virtual, but maybe think of it this way. If there's a new social media that's coming out, okay, maybe it's Facebook today, and then it's TikTok tomorrow, and then it could be another one later. That's how it feels like for most people. They were used to being in person, or they were used to going on Facebook, but then something happens in the real world, like coronavirus, and everyone has to use TikTok or Zoom nowadays. And it kind of feels like, wow, I have to learn how to adapt to this different medium. As a good communicator, as a good speaker, as a good leader, you must be able to take on the challenges that's ahead of you and adapt to any situation that's there and know how to communicate through new mediums. You can't be that person that thinks, oh, I'm so good at in person. I'm not gonna get better at Zoom. This online thing, everything's gonna go back to normal. So therefore, you're not open-minded. And one of the best things that you can do as a leader, as a speaker, or someone that loves to grow is to keep your mind open. There's a saying that goes, your mind is like a parachute. If it's not open, it doesn't work. And we definitely have to keep our minds open right now when everything is going through virtual. And just to share a little backstory, when I first went online and speaking to the camera and doing all this live stream and doing everything on video, I didn't like it because it did take more work, setting up the cam. Maybe there's one cam, maybe there's another cam, there's a mic, definitely. And so I felt like, wow, I have to do more work, but in person I can just open my mouth and speak. Well, at first I was not open-minded. I was thinking this is going to take more work. I'll do it later on when I have to. But here's the thing. I had some good friends around me, and they said, "Kid, just do it. Everything is going to go virtual nowadays. Just do it." And the more push that I got, the more I got on video. Like, I had self-doubts. I was like, "Oh, my background's not good. I don't have the best equipment. I can't go online yet." But it's progression, not perfection. And I have to say, now I enjoy the online side of things even a lot more than in person. And of course, one of the best persons to learn from is Brad. He's one of the best on video. And so, Brad, thank you for asking that question.
That's so great. So, I love that. I love the parachute thing. Keep your mind open. If it's not open, you're going to fall out of the sky. That's so cool. So, one of the things that I have seen you do again and again really, really well is use story as part of the way that you communicate your message. And the question I have is, I know that like when I've seen you at the BostonSpeaks series, you often will show up at the start of the event and you will share some personal story, something that's happened to you, and then you relate it to kind of what's going on. And I'm wondering if you could tell us, like, what's your process doing that? How do you collect stories? How do you decide how to use them? And then, like, how does it work for you when you're actually communicating? And then one step beyond that, how can we use storytelling in this environment?
Yeah. So when it comes to storytelling, and thanks for asking that question, Brad, and I want to get your take on it as well, because you're a good storyteller. When it comes to storytelling, it's just not about the story. It's about the point you want to prove based on the story. Now, here's what I mean. You know how we have research and facts? It's just not about the facts and research. Well, that research or that fact or quote is trying to prove a point that you're trying to get across. So yes, you can be the best storyteller in the world, but if your storytelling doesn't have a point, your people is going to be asking, why did you tell me that story? I mean, have you ever listened to a story when maybe it was sad, like 10 minutes ago, and then you're thinking, man, that story is going on and on and on forever. What's the point of your story? So you first really have to know that if you want to tell us a good story, well, first, what is that point that you want to get across? So let me give an example of a story that I want to tell, okay? The point is, as I'm collaborating and brainstorming this now, the point of the story is no matter what happens in our life, it's neither good or neither bad. We have to just look at it the way it is and adapt and grow from it. So here's what I mean. Once upon a time, there was a farmer, okay? And with this farmer, he had a bunch of horses, cows, all this other stuff. But one day the horse ran away. And so the neighbors came up and said to the farmer, "Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that horse went away. That's so unfortunate." And the farmer said, maybe. Now the next day, the horse actually came back with 3 other stray horses that the horse followed. And the neighbors came and said, "Wow, that's so great news. Now you have 4 horses." And the farmer said, "Well, maybe." Now the farmer had a kid. And so that evening, his kid went on one of the stray horses, was riding it, fell off, and broke his leg. And so the neighbors came again and said, "Oh, I'm so sorry, your kid got hurt and broke his leg. That is so unfortunate." And of course, the farmer said again, "Maybe." Now, the 4th day, the army actually came and they were recruiting new people. But then they saw the boy and said, your boy has a limp. I don't think he'll do so good in the army. Now the neighbors came again and said, wow, you were so lucky. Your kid did not get drafted. And again, the farmer said, maybe. You see, there are a lot of things that happen to us in life. It could be coronavirus. It could be a lot of snow. There could be good things as well. But sometimes we get in our heads so much, we're going to say, oh, this is so bad, it ruins our day, right? So what we really have to do is take a look at each situation and just see it as it is. Okay, so you see how that, there's a random story about a farmer, but I had to back it up with the points. So whenever I get into presentations or whenever I do a speech in front of the panel that I host, I always think about, well, what are the points I want to get across? Therefore, I think of the story. So it's usually not story first, it's point first and then story, if that makes sense. Okay. Brad, what about you? What are you thinking when it comes to?
Well, okay, so I'm going to dive into on storytelling, but I just want to acknowledge a couple of people who are here. So here we've got Marcel, who's saying boa tarde. He must be either from Brazil or Portugal. And Barbara Rose is calling in all the way from Tennessee. Awesome. And who else have we got here? Mustafa is here. You don't say where you're from, but I'm guessing it's somewhere not nearby. And so on. And this is, hi everyone. I'm not sure who this Facebook user, this could be, I'm going to guess that this is Christy, but can't tell for sure because it just says Facebook user. So, okay, so I'm going to talk about a little bit of my take on how to use story, especially when you're doing a virtual thing like this. But before I do, I want to acknowledge that this presentation is presented by Restream. And they are the people who are responsible for doing this. And I just want to put on their overlay. Hang on just a second here. Here we go. Restream, yay. And the reason I want to mention them is because what we're doing right now, Kit and I, in the ability for us to talk to all of you, is that we are going live onto multiple channels at the same time. And you can do this too with this amazing tool. And the way it works is that I am just on my laptop plugging into the internet, and I am going live onto Facebook and YouTube and Twitter and LinkedIn all at the same time. And I'm able to schedule this event. Like basically I'm hosting a live event and I'm bringing my friend Kit on board, and we're having an event and a little, snow party. Here's the snow. And we're able to share this where you are. So if some of you are on YouTube, some of you are on Facebook, some of you are on LinkedIn, and I can bring you all together and I can see all your comments. And every time somebody says hello, I can put your name right on the screen, just like this. And I just think this is a great way when you're talking about virtually presenting and virtually carrying attention and virtually elevating your message sharing. Anytime you want to do this, this is a great tool for doing that. And if you're interested in getting Restream and using it, you can use this link right here, restream.io/join/showup. And to start, it's free. I think you get 3 locations for free, and then you can upgrade. And the first level to upgrade is very inexpensive. It's like $14 a month. So check it out, use this link, and you too can elevate your virtual speaking by speaking for a field than you ever imagined. There's like over 30 destinations that you can choose from. So there we are. Now we're going to go back to bring us both on here. And let me just change back to holiday graphic. Yay, we're back in the snow party. And we'll take this and we'll take this off right there. Ba-bum. So storytelling. What I like to do when I'm telling stories is the first thing that I start with is how do I want people to feel while I'm telling the story? Because one of the magic parts of storytelling is that when you're telling a story, usually it's about someone who is facing some sort of challenge or conflict. And if the story doesn't have some kind of challenge or conflict in the story, like the farmer's having something good happen, and then the farmer has something bad happen, and the farmer has something good happen, and the farmer has something bad happen. That makes it interesting. That up and down arc of things are looking good, and then they're looking bad. And so all your stories want to have that kind of element in it. And as we go through as listeners to whatever's happening to the character in the story, their emotional arc, their emotional feelings, we feel exactly the same emotion. So when you're telling a story, you want to be thinking, what do you want people to feel? And then you pick a story based on that emotion and that outcome. And then you tell your story, and just like what Kit just did, then you want to relate it to your audience. You want to relate, okay, so here's my story, and what do we mean? Like, what does this story mean? What did I get? What's my takeaway? What can you take away from this story? And when you're doing it in a business context, you want to relate it to your work, and so that people see, oh, okay, so here, like now I see that I can do this for myself. So for example, I'll tell a very quick story, something that happened to me. This is an actual true story. And back in the day when we could travel, I was traveling from Boston down to North Carolina for a 3-day conference. And when I got on the plane, like you normally do when you get on the plane, you always have to sit next to someone. And I was sitting down next to a young woman, and she was sitting over in the window seat, and she had her iPad, and she had her earbuds, and she was just glued to her iPad for the entire flight, and she completely ignored me. And that is okay. That's just what people do on airplanes. And I didn't really think too much of it. And I just thought, well, this is the world we live in. People kind of ignore one another. And so what? So the cool thing is 3 days later, it was time for me to come back home. I got on the plane, went down to my seat, sat down, and there next to me was the same woman. And so what happened was, as soon as I got to my seat, she looked up and our eyes met, and we both started laughing. And then we started talking. And I learned all these things about her. She was a student at a Boston school, and she was studying accounting, and she'd been down in North Carolina visiting her sister. And I told her, you'll never have to worry about getting a job if you get an accounting degree, because everybody needs an accountant. And so we had this conversation that was able to happen because of this one thing. And now here's my lesson. And I wouldn't say now here's my lesson when I'm doing this story, but this is sort of a meta thing for you guys. So I would say, well, what happened here was that I had become a familiar face. And in fact, in the context of the plane, I had become the only familiar face in a whole plane full of strangers. And because I was familiar, she had permission to talk to me. And now I take the story one step further and I relate it to my work and what we're talking about today, which is that when you are speaking virtually and when you're trying to get your message out virtually and using video, the problem is when you are a stranger, no one wants to talk to you. But if you go live and you do virtual presentations like this, often you become the familiar face. In fact, you can become the familiar face for the thing you do. And that's when you have a bunch of people coming in. And that's, I'm basically following this formula of how to tell a story. So there's the answer to the question that I asked you.
That's a good story.
Yeah, it really happened.
Oh, those are the best, the real stories.
Right. So, okay. Right. I'm going to skip down here to my next thing here. Okay. So how can we, we're live. We've got a bunch of people on live. We want to interact with the people who are here. What do you do? And what can you offer to people around interactivity? Like we're speaking virtually, how can we create more interaction and more actual engagement with people? Because it's one thing to grab their attention, but it's another thing to get them engaged.
I think there's many ways to think about it. Of course, one is your audience actually does something physical. But we also have to think about it as in you, the speaker, the first thing you need to do is to sustain your energy. You know, especially when we're live, if we don't speak, the whole room is going to be silent. So it doesn't mean that your audience is not engaged. You need to, one, sustain your energy because your audience likes your vibe, right? Your vibe attracts your tribe. And if you want to get more audience engagement, don't just think they have to type something into the chat. They're already engaged because they're listening to you, right? So you can also think of it this way. Well, how many people are dropping off and how many people are staying on? Let's say you have 100 people and 100 people stay on for the whole time, but they are still not chatting into the chat. Does that mean that they're not engaged? No. If they're still staying on for that time, that means they're still engaged. For audience engagement, you also need to think about, well, what are some physical things that you can see? So what are some actions that your audience can take? I mean, this is nothing new to us, but you need to actually think of, well, if I want them to physically show me that they're engaged, what can they actually do? Well, of course, one is to type into the chat. Another thing is to put on an emoji, same exact thing, put in questions. But again, you can also it goes back to number one, sustain your energy. Okay, so let's say this, right? I can't see any of you, but let's do an exercise real quick. I want all of you to put your hands up in the air. Now, this is going to feel silly, but I want you to try this. Now, even though I said to put your hands up in the air, you might not be doing it because maybe you're driving, but maybe your mind is doing it at the same time. So I'm going to say, put your hand up in the air and put your hand right in front of you. Okay, well, that's how close you should be sitting from your laptop because it'll put your head right into the angle. Now, again, this was just an example. Even though I'm showing it and you still might not be doing it, your mind is still engaged. But of course, if you did take that extra step and you're putting your hands up and you're putting out there, right? So your hands should basically almost be touching the screen, right? So if you're too far away, that means your head is too small. So this is a good size. So think of your engagement as in one, the speaker, sustain your energy. And second, what can people physically do on their end, whether it's typing into the chat, doing something physical on their end. So you want to think of engagement in all of these different things when you're going live or when you're on video, right? What about you, Brad?
Oh yeah, that's great. I like doing call and response. So, you know, I say doing live video is awesome. And if you agree with me, write awesome in the comments. And I also like the idea of doing things where you would get people to, you know, either ask questions or answer questions and have this kind of thing where, you know, because every time we, you know, have somebody come on, they're basically coming on here and saying, greetings. Mm-hmm. Just like Eddie here. And this is great, you know, and we can do other things like all of you guys who are watching and who are right on now. And I can see there are people here because I can see the numbers. And by the way, we'll just skip over to the snow cam if you're interested in the snow. And if you have questions for Kit, this is your chance. Like whatever kind of virtual gathering that you're engaged with. And I know every single person who is on today is involved in some kind of virtual gathering. And over the next 2 weeks, it's going to be even more. Maybe it's just your family that you're going to be getting together with virtually. What could you be doing during the holiday season with the people who are close to you that is more engaging and captivating than what you would normally do? And we're both here for resources. So you have a question and you're wondering, like, what can you do? If you're thinking about, okay, so next year, starting in January, I am going to become much more visible and much more engaged using this virtual medium. What could I do to get there? If you've got a question, pose it in the comments. And so this is the kind of thing, like, put that in there. And sometimes it can be very simple. Like, you know, if you can say very simply, if you go live on your phone, write phone. If you go live on your laptop, write laptop. If you go live with a fancy camera, write fancy camera. Things like that. And this makes it really easy for people to engage. For example, Maria just wrote, awesome. You get the prize, Maria. And this is the kind of thing, this is exactly what I'm talking about. Like you say things and you get this sort of call and response going back and forth between yourself and the people who are out there. So as a way, I'm just sort of wondering, we're sort of running down to the end of our 30 minutes here. Is there another takeaway that you would like to share with our audience, Kit? Some key insight that you have about the virtual world that you have discovered, especially in the last 8 months?
I think when it comes to going virtually, you have to really ask yourself, why are you going virtually? Yeah, it could be to grow your business, to practice the speaking, but when you are going live, is it contributing to your goals in the first place? Because sometimes as human beings, we get attracted to so many different things. We're like, okay, we're going to go live every single day. I got caught in this trap myself. I'm going to go live every single day. But at the end of the day, I forgot the bigger picture. Well, what am I doing when I am going live?
Pile of all these things that you've tried that didn't go as well as you thought. And out of all of that, something really good is going to come. And that's sort of how you get there. It's by making. I was wondering what your discard pile looks like, Kit.
What's the name of that book?
It's called The Practice.
The Practice. I think that's a great concept. I actually had a question for you, Brad. How often are you going on live nowadays?
How often?
How often?
Okay, so a couple things. One, there's this show, which is going live every Thursday at 3 p.m. And in addition to this show, I go live at least 2 times at other times during the week. And one of the times that I'm always live is on Tuesdays, and then the other time is usually more spontaneous, and it depends on what I'm doing. I am thinking of having an experiment in January where I will go live every weekday just to see what that's like, because I've never actually done that much before, and I'm just curious to try it out for at least the month of January and just see, like, it's a theory. I'm going to have a theory. I'm going to try it out and see what happens. See if it actually helps my growth, if I love doing it, if I don't love doing it, if the people I'm doing it for, if they love me doing it, just, like, we'll see what happens. But I'm going to try that out.
I went live, I think this was like a few weeks ago, live for every single day. It was just only for a week though.
Right. Yeah, it's a lot. It can be a lot.
Yeah, depending on your channel, depending on your audience, sometimes it's a good thing. Sometimes you don't need it. Sometimes people love it.
Right, exactly. Yeah, so, all right. I think we're going to wrap it up here. I just want to, first of all, thank Restream for being the sponsor of this show. And again, if you guys want to do what we're doing and you want to go after Restream, you can use this link right here, restream.io/join/show-up. And we'll take one more view of, just a second here. We'll take a view outside. Here is the snow cam. Boom, boom, boom. Make it go full screen. See, it's getting dark out now. Look at that. Ooh. Looks to me like it stopped snowing. Oh my gosh, you can see the snow in the trees, but there's no more snow coming down. And then Kit, if you want to go chase after Kit, you can find him at his YouTube channel, which is this link right here. And he is available youtube.com/C. That is the channel designation, Boston Speaks on YouTube. And the coolest thing is that both this thing and my thing are available on YouTube. And so go look for Kit, Boston Speaks. You can go look for my channel there, which is video. And it's the best way to keep up with events like this. Go onto YouTube, just click that subscribe button, and you can subscribe to Kit's channel. You're going to love it for. If you're interested in really upping your game and being the best speaker that you know how to be, follow Kit's channel. He will take you there. And you'll also get other extra added bonuses of anything that's happening with Boston Speaks, the Boston Speaks series, other amazing speakers, et cetera, et cetera. Kit's always up to doing like really cool stuff. And he's someone who I've definitely been to my benefit of somebody who I've gotten to know. So thank you so much for coming on today, Kit.
Hey, Brad, thank you so much, you and your audience, for having me.
You are welcome. And everyone else, tune in next week. Next Thursday is actually Christmas Eve. And Christmas Eve, I'm doing a special Christmas Eve show. And I'm going to have giveaways and prizes and more snow out the window, perhaps. So stay tuned for that. And until then, we'll see you